Thank you. The Board of Education does recognize the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of providing an opportunity to the public to express themselves on school-related matters of concern to the residents of East Brunswick. In order to allow for a fair and orderly public comment period and in accordance with Board Policy 167, individual comments are limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public are reminded that this is a public televised meeting of the Board of Education and to protect the privacy of all students and staff. Concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff by New Jersey Statute 10412B. Is there anyone this evening that would like to address the Board of Education? Wow. Seeing none, we'll close that session and move on to our action items. I'd like a motion for item A1, approval of minutes from October 8th, and note that in the sentence it should read October 8th and not
It's the other way around.
It should read October 22nd.
Yes.
So moved.
Mrs.
Second.
Becker, Mrs. Shaw, is there any discussion?
One other correction, I believe it's in the header. It says October 23rd for the regular meeting instead of the 22nd.
In the actual minutes themselves.
Yeah. I mean, in the minutes itself, it has the right date, but there's a header at the top.
It will be corrected. Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
Abstain.
Oh,
I wasn't
Oh.
there.
Mrs. Chu. I'd then like a motion for item A2, submission of the New Jersey CUSAC statement.
So moved.
Mrs. Shaw and Mrs. Becker. Is there any discussion? Mrs.
I was
Shaw.
hoping that we might get just a brief overview of the reason why our score in instruction was a little bit lower. It was like 92%
Correct.
instead of the 100.
Mrs. Gulick, do you want to address that?
Part of the scoring requires that you report out your proficiency level on the NJ Ask at the end of 2014. And as a district, in both math and language arts, we were at approximately 88% as opposed to the 95%, which is required to meet the full level of points. It's the only area.
Okay. And as Dr. Valesky mentioned in his memo to us, he is not aware of any school district in the state of New Jersey where every single student group, including ESL and special education, were actually meeting that proficiency level.
We are not, particularly those of our size.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? We're going to need to do a roll call.
Yes. Mrs. Becker.
Yes.
Mrs. Chu.
Yes.
Mrs. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mr. Phillipsen.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes?
President Cohen.
Yes. We would like, I'd like a motion then from items B1 through B6.
So moved.
Mrs. Becker and Mrs. Shaw again. Is there any discussion on any one of those items?
I have
Mrs. Shaw.
a question. In B2, where we are giving consideration to out-of-district placements, the second student is described as being recommended to go to the Morris Union Jointure Commission. And I'm wondering if anyone knows whether the County Ed Services Commissions specialize in certain programming. For example, nonverbal language training was something that might have been mentioned in regards to this particular student. But anyway, it's just that it would seem to me to be a good idea for counties to try to zero in on certain programs to provide. Otherwise, we'd have a lot of duplication of programs from one county to another. And of course, I'm noticing that the student has not been recommended to attend a Middlesex Ed Services Commission program.
Right, this, you are correct, Mrs. Shaw, some of the programs in different counties do have more of a specialty. This particular student has demonstrated behaviors that necessitate a separate program, a different program than one we have here in the county.
Mrs. Shaw, I just
yes.
wanted to mention that in my capacity as a board member for the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission, there is discussion that's ongoing about the expansion of their programs and they're looking to expand to provide a greater spectrum of services to districts. So this might be something in the future that we might be able to utilize their services.
Yeah, because although I think it's in everybody's best interest to be able to send students to, neighboring counties, you certainly have limitations in terms of the amount of time that a special needs student can spend on the school bus.
Right.
Okay. Also, I don't think that we typically see the costs of related services being broken out from tuition. And I wondered why that was the case this time.
Which student are we looking at?
This
Same
is the
student.
same student.
Okay. The OT and speech therapy in this particular case is not provided as direct therapy to the student, which is why it's supplemental.
I'm not sure I understand that, but,
For this particular student, this is not part of the direct therapy that the student would get, so we had to supplement that.
At the Morris Union.
I see,
Yes.
okay. All right, so in the program that
Right.
child's going into, they don't typically have
Right. it's not-
OT and speech.
Right, so we have to supplement that.
Okay. So therefore, the tuition is figured without those related services included? Okay. All right, I do have one more question. This one is on B3. And this is the approval of a contract with New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. And I first of all want to say, what a wonderful way to get kids interested in the idea of learning an instrument or strings in the early years. But I am curious as to why it is not being offered to all schools. I understand that it is being paid for from a grant from the Education Foundation, as well as money raised by the PTAs, but I'm wondering what's gone on here. The other PTAs didn't want to contribute to this program, or?
I'm not aware. I would hate to give a specific answer, Mrs. Shaw. I'd like to research, but it appears that these are the schools who did express interest in developing this relationship with the foundation and soliciting this great activity. So I don't know if the other school districts did do it or were not interested. I'd have to find out.
Okay, because I really would be interested in knowing, because I do think that one of the things that we should always be trying to keep in mind is, equity among our different elementary schools.
Good point.
That's all, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I think we will need a roll call on that, too.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mrs. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. McAvoy?
Yes.
Mr. Philipsak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes?
President Cohen?
Yes. Like a motion for items C1 and C2.
So moved.
Mrs.
Second.
Becker, Mrs. Shaw. Is there any discussion on either of those items? All-
Just one point, we have in C2, the Tyler Technologies conducting a systems evaluation in our transportation department, and I'm just wondering when we might anticipate getting a report on their evaluation.
Mrs. Shaw, let me talk to Mr. Giuliano about that. This is an ongoing activity right now,
Okay?
and we're trying to understand the features of the Versatran routing software, which we are finding are significant, that will help us build greater efficiencies in our bus routes. So I'm not sure when the timing will be, when we'll be able to give you a report, but it should be sometime, maybe after the holiday, I would anticipate, but let me confirm.
Okay. All right, so do you therefore anticipate that they'll be coming in again to look further at our systems, or they were able to gather enough information?
It's an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
And I believe we're going to be looking at specific opportunities to maybe build efficiencies in routing for next school year.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'll give you a specific time. I'll get that for the entire board of when we can give you a report.
Any other comments?